cup at a time. Tea time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. Yeah.
Well, welcome to Tea Time. It is afternoon tea time, and I am joined here this afternoon with the incredible Nan Arkwright, and we're going to be talking about children's mental health, sensory, and emotions, and all of that good stuff. So grab your tea, grab your coffee. You do not have to drink tea to sit and have tea time with Miss Liz. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, please give that a quick subscribe. Ring that little bell, and you'll be notified when all the tea times are there. We are at the end of the rope, guys. We are on the last month, and then we have the huge reunion show coming December 21st. So if you want to check that out, you want to subscribe to the channel because that's where that'll be hosted. It is a free event, but donations can be given to Miss Liz in order to keep these tea times going. So now let me give you a little bit of insight, disclaimer, bio, and all that. And let me get Nan in here, and we're going to spill some good old TEA with children's mental health this afternoon. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment and taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It's significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, in 2023, all tea times are done on Thursday, 10, 3, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's not a Thursday, it's a rescheduled tea time, or it's a guest that wants to come and have a second cup of tea with Miss Liz. So now a little bit on my guest this afternoon. Well, Nan Arkwright is a pediatric occupational therapist and a writer who supports families in regulating emotions and solving everyday problems that come up at home and school. At the age of 72, Nan is launching her writing career with an explosion of children's mental health books expected to be published in 2024. Already published is her best-selling, award-winning book, Mission Control, A Big Feeling Adventure. Now let me get Nan in here and we can share some children's mental health and get you parents out there involved with us. So welcome, Nan.
Liz, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here today.
My tongue, I swear, I think I get anxiety or something. I'm not sure. I start to talk and I start reading people's bios and then I get all, ooh, what am I doing? It just hits me sometimes. So, Nan, I want to get started on how I get all them started. So who is Nan as a little girl and who is Nan now?
Well, as a little girl, I loved being a teacher. So I remember lots of times in the summer when there was no school going on, I missed being at school. So I always invited my friends to play school with me. And of course, I always wanted to be the teacher. And because that was the most fun thing. And I look back and I think there were such early signs of my wanting to be a teacher. And I remember exactly where I was and when I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. When I was in third grade, I was on my front porch. I'm like, just this revelation, like, oh, and I never wavered from that. And I'm still doing it all these years later. And I really identify as that from a very young age. I was a very active child, always outdoors playing and hanging out with my friends. It was a different era than today, where I was just off for the day and came home for lunch and dinner. And so I feel like I had a wonderful childhood, and it made me who I am today. And I learned my social skills there by working things out with my friends, and there weren't adults there to manage that for me. And I learned how to be independent and be responsible and all those things in my childhood. And so I'm really grateful for those experiences I had, because I know not everyone has been so fortunate to have those same kinds of experiences. But because I'm trying to give back and help the generations that are following so that they know how to do that. And that is part of my work as an occupational therapist today. A lot of it is emotional regulation for kids, helping them learn to solve problems with peers, but also like figuring out, how do I solve this problem? My sock's not getting on. What should I do? Or this homework is really hard for me. What should I do? And so that's a lot of what I do. It's teaching all the skills that kids need to develop in order to become independent and successful adults, because they've learned the skills through some guidance by adults.
Well, when you're in kindergarten, right, that's when you learn how to tie your shoes and put your socks on and put your jacket on and all of that. So do you work with the younger elementary students?
I have toddlers to teens. That's my the age range that I work with. Yeah.
So which one has the most challenge, do you find?
All are equally challenging, just for different reasons. I really like working with the younger children because it's easier to help guide them, because they don't have patterns that established, compared to a seventh grader, for example, where there's been a long history of interactions with parents, interactions with peers, and now I'm trying to help them understand the difference between how things have been working for them or not working for them, and how they could do things differently, and things would be easier for them. So I'm always looking for ways for things to be easier for them, so that they have more capacity to think about others, more capacity to be able to get their work done without so much difficulty. And also even just with their bodies, making things easier for their bodies, how to sit in your chair without falling out of it, looking for ways to make even that, so that they are not really working at the brainstem level of, how should my body be sitting in the chair? Or how should I be thinking about space around other kids? But they're able to think more like, oh, what's going on around me? And what's the teacher talking about right now? So I'm trying to make those really basic foundation skills easier for kids, to free up the more cortical part of the cortical part of the brain, so that they have more availability to put focus and attention there.
So Dan, do you work with the children that have the assessment done with the ESP?
ESP, I think they use different terms in different parts of the country or different countries. But I think in California, well, in the United States, maybe you're thinking we have IEPs, might be the same thing.
Yes, that's it. I had the wrong letters. Yes, you're right.
Oh yeah, some of them do have IEPs for sure, and some do not. Most of the kids probably most of them do not have an IEP, but do benefit from extra support for sure.
So when you go into the classrooms, are you sitting in the classrooms all day long then, or are you going in from time to time? Are you, how's that work?
The kids actually come to me for individual sessions or for group sessions. I do go into the school sometimes for observations and sometimes to support the kids and help them, like help the teachers know how to support the kids in the classroom, because I can't be there all the time. So I really want to help the teachers. And similarly, I'm trying to help the parents, because if they have more tools to help their children and they're with them all the time, then they're going to be able to affect more of a change than I can on a weekly or twice a week basis with them. So that's really as much of a target, or as I'm targeting adults, giving them tools as much as I am with the kids. They all need tools, but different kinds of tools, of course.
So before we went live, you mentioned that you had watched Jim Price's Tea Time and the social skills. So how do you feel the social skills are in the educational system today, Nan?
I hear a lot more challenges since the pandemic, more intense, more frequent, more unhappiness on the part of the kids, more feeling like with my oldest group of social skills groups, I hear a lot from them about how difficult it is to navigate the world now compared to before the pandemic. And so I think that they are unprepared and for navigating the world. And I think that that's my goal. That's my mission, is to prepare them so that they are able to know what to do if someone says something to them that they don't like. And it's not easy at all. And it's not commonplace for parents to know exactly how to guide their kids either. It's very complicated. And I am always amazed when I see, like, I do have helpers in my social skills groups who social skills are just so easy. They can get kids to just help engage in activities so effortlessly and make them feel included and welcomed in a game that they're playing. And when it's easy like that for a child, it's underappreciated how complex social skills are. And when it's harder for a child to know how to interact with other kids, I think it's hard for people to understand, like, why is it hard? But it's really so complex and so many layers to it that I am looking for ways when I'm working with them to understand what's really difficult for the child. What can I do that would make the biggest difference in supporting them to build their confidence? And this is kind of where the mental health piece comes in too. And that is that mental health is a lot about being able to navigate and the ups and downs of the day, and to feel like you have the competence to and the tools to solve the problems, and to feel like I know, well, I said the competence to be able to do it, but also to walk away and say, I did it. And to be kind about it too, of course. But self-advocacy and knowing how to advocate for yourself in a way that is kind. And one of the things that is in the well, we didn't mention that I have a lot of books. Well, you did mention at the beginning that I have a lot of books coming out in 2024. But one of the main goals in writing those books is for kids to learn how to reach out to others. So the pro-social behaviors of kindness and looking for where the need is and how can I step in. And when I ask kids in my social skills groups, like, what was the week like for you with your friends? What did you do that was show kindness towards someone else? And almost always I helped somebody. They dropped their pencil. I picked it up for them. And so those are very small things, but their awareness. Like I have a role that I can play in helping and make other people and in making the world a little bit better place. And so I'm trying to get, so when a child says that he was mean to me and wouldn't let me have a turn, then I try to help them understand what that could mean, and partly to reinterpret it as, oh, maybe that person didn't understand that you actually were wanting to join in. And that's very possible with many of the kids I work with because they don't know how to speak up. They don't know how to get someone's attention and just simply, not simply, but it sounds simple, but say, I'd like to play. And then for the other people that they're trying to join with, to be able to say, oh, sure, here's what we're doing. Would you like to do this? So it's helping the ones who are more capable be able to bring in the ones who are less capable and still learning for whatever reason. They're younger or they just have not had the practice. And so everyone has a part to learn in a social interaction. And so if that child was thinking they didn't want to let them join in, I'm trying to reframe it and help them see a different perspective. I wonder if they didn't know that you wanted to play. Let's go together and find out. And of course, then I'm facilitating the situation for success so that the child who is can welcome the child in will be able to say, oh, sure, we're doing this. So a lot of it is kids not knowing the vocabulary. They won't let me play. Maybe that's the child doesn't know what they're wanting. And the child who says they won't let me play doesn't know how to say it any other way. And doesn't know how to say, I'd like to join the group, but I don't know what to do.
Well, I think that the children are... No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, I think that's often what the difficulty is with the children I'm working with. They just don't know.
Yeah. Well, and we spoke about this morning with the guest this morning about human development is we don't teach it, right, on how to communicate, how to ask for what we want and express our feelings because we're so closed up, right? We're so built on programming and society and that where we have children that have sensory challenges and that, and we need to have more patience with them and guide them like you do when a child comes and says they don't want me to play. But if you don't express that you want to join, how does the other person know, right? So you need that mediator that it helps you come along the way. So how do we get these get the children to communicate a little bit better?
That is always what I say is the challenge for every situation that arises in my social skills groups. It is communication. And it is always a lack of it or a miscommunication or it's not a right word, but discommunication, but meaning faulty. Like there's something about it, like you mumbled it or you didn't speak up loud enough or you didn't get eye contact, something like that. But it is what is always at the root of a problem when I come to try to help kids who are having a bit of a conflict with each other. I don't like this, I don't like this, but they don't have the tools. They also often don't have the tools. They don't have the practice of knowing how to compromise. They don't know how they don't have the practice of others reaching out to them. So they don't have that modeling to know, oh, I could do it to someone else because others have done it for me. So it is the number one that's a challenge for kids. And of course, some kids don't have the language. Their language skills are delayed, so that makes it harder too. And a lot of kids tell me, I'm too shy to speak up. Would you help me? So they'll talk to me, but they feel uncomfortable. They don't have enough practice, enough guidance, enough support from adults to say, I'll come with you. Here's what we can say. And I'm not trying to speak for them, but I'm trying to simplify it. I'm trying to set it up so they can say their few words, like, can I play? and I'm engaging the other kids to make sure they're listening and stay with the child while they're trying to get their message out to them, and then making sure that the other person says, yes, of course you can play. You can be this character in the play or whatever they're doing.
So, Nan, how did you get the name for your website? The hop, skip, and jump ahead.
You know, there is a song, an old song, maybe from the 20s or 30s, called, it's got those words in it, but not a head. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump. And I thought, that's perfect. A hop. I work on all those gross motor skills with kids. And I just added the word ahead to it. And then on the introduction, I saw that you had taken shown the logo that I have. And the logo is a fingerprint character that you put your finger on an ink pad and you press it on a piece of paper, and it looks like the body of a little character. And then one of the characters, when you can add on the hair and the face and the legs and the arms. And I had one of my second grade clients do that for me. And that's her original artwork there. So she drew a little character hopping, another character skipping, and another character jumping. So I have a great affinity for the name, because I remember that little activity with that child many years ago and how fun that was to do that. So when I see that logo, I think it's really fun. And in fact, it's in the book, Mission Control Big Feelings Adventure. If it is online, that you can see it on my website. You can see the illustrator and me reading the book, and it has sound effects that go along with our reading of it. But if you look at the beginning of the book, there's a scene where it shows Joseph, the main character, and his dog Gretchen sitting in the living room. And on the wall, of course, are some framed pictures. And one of them is the hop, skip, and a jump ahead characters, the logo that's on the wall there. So it's cute.
Oh, that is so cool. So you've taken the logo and put it into the book as a wall.
Yes. So it's adding cool. In. It's to tell people about little things that are in the book that you wouldn't know. Like, why is that there? And it's fun to let people know some background information. And like, there's also a picture there of Yosemite, because both the illustrator and I really, really love going to Yosemite, which is a national park here in California, driving distance for us. That is really fun to go to and beautiful. And so there's a lot of things like that in the book that are just fun, like how one of the characters, whose name is Robojo, how he got his name. And you have to know a little bit more about the story to appreciate it. But the main character's name is Joseph. And when he goes into his imagination to work out this dilemma, this conflict that he has inside of himself, he pretends to be a robot. So we combined the word robot and Joseph and made it Robojo. And so it's very meaningful, because that is what kids do. They sometimes act out conflicts to things that are bothering them through characters, through puppets, through stuffed animals, just their imaginary play. That's how they do it. So that's kind of how that came to be. But there's a lot of things like that in the book.
Well, it kind of gets people to pay attention too when they're looking at the book, because you're putting little nuggets in the book.
Yes, there are a lot of little details that are there. And one of the things that the illustrator and I just recently did was do videos of it. It's like a character study of each character from the book. So we went through and talked about these little nuggets. Like, why did I do this with Joseph? And why did we add Gretchen in here, the dog, for this scene? And the illustrator added in things also that he had particular reasons and for adding in. And so we did a lot of collaboration. Unlike a lot of the, I know illustrators and authors, the illustrator writes the words and says, the author writes the words and says, here to the illustrator, will you make it fun? But Joe, the illustrator, and I really worked very collaboratively throughout the whole process. And so he brought in a lot of the fun in the book, and I brought in the therapy aspect in the book, and my expertise and my experiences of working with the kids and how hard it is for them to manage those big feelings that they do have, and how skilled an adult has to be in order to help a child with those big feelings and come out in the end feeling like, oh, I just grew from that situation. I'm not shamed for it or embarrassed by it or feel bad about it. I actually realize I could do something different next time. And I feel that there's a promise of tomorrow that I have now that I didn't have before, because I just learned a big lesson and solved my own problem. And that's one of the big things that I think has to do a lot with mental health, is being able to solve your own problems. And of course, they can't do it always by themselves, but the parents can set it up for them to be able to figure out how to solve the problem and break down the problem into a size that is manageable for them to solve. And so the youngest of the kids that I work with are able to do this, and they come up with ideas. Well, first of all, their ideas are their ideas, so they are willing to do them. But if I suggest an idea, almost always they say, nope, nope, that's not going to work. And so I learned, like, their ideas are better. They like their own ideas. And sometimes kids really don't have an idea. And then I'll say, well, do you think this might be an idea? And I might offer them one or maybe two ideas. And then they'll pick, yeah, I could do that. But it is so powerful. It really makes a difference. And I think that that's something that is a lot of times very difficult for adults, because we're all so scheduled and we're all so busy, and we've got to get out the door and just hurry up. And kids are not having as much time to do some of those problem solving things, because it's much easier for adults to just say, here, I'll do it. And they're not having the time to struggle and having that feeling of mastery. I practiced it and I got good at it. So that's a big part of what I do in my therapy sessions too, is let kids struggle with things, let them be having a hard time figuring out what to do and working through it. And it's not hard for those situations to come up. I don't prevent them from happening. I allow them to happen so they can learn from it. But it's also very easy to prevent a problem, but that's not my goal.
My goal is and I think children need to be able to problem solve, right? Because if we're doing everything for them, we're enabling them. So when they get older, they, instead of them understanding and knowing how to do it, they're just like, oh, well, mom and dad can do it, or grandma and grandpa can do it for me. And then when they get older, they're lost in the world.
Yeah, they do need to have those skills that they practice from the very, very early age, because they can. I'm amazed that a 3-year-old can solve a problem. I mean, I'm not really amazed because I know they can do it, but I love the process of watching them figure it out for themselves and think, look at you, even at this very young age. So that's the thing I try to help parents understand, is your child can solve problems from a very early age, but they need the guidance. They don't just automatically know how, but they can be set up to figure it out.
So we have a couple questions here for you, Nan. I just want to get them out to you. So in your book, you say you have a bunch of nuggets. So at the end of the book, do you have like a part where you say, did you notice the hop, skip, and jump image on certain pages? Like, you put like little quizzes at the end of the book, or?
There is one part on the website that talks about some of these little things that you're asking about. If you go on the website, there's two places. One is a Spaceman Sam's Club for Kids, and Spaceman Sam is is a superhero in the story, and he teaches a lot about emotional regulation for kids. And then there's a Spaceman Sam club for grown-ups also. So I think it's in the kids club where there's a list of, did you know these things about the book? Yeah.
I think that's really cool the way you did that, because it makes them pay attention when they're reading. You know, sometimes we just buy a book and we read the story, but we don't look at the little images and the little nuggets that are in there, the little golden secrets, right? Sometimes there's so many children's books out there that are got these nuggets, but because we're so focused on just reading the story, that we forget about the images that are in the book.
I agree with you. And that the book that we're talking about, Mission Control: A Big Feelings Adventure, it's all about the pictures. And the illustrator didn't put a lot of words to the picture, to the story. It's mostly pictures, but that's the value of the book to me, is that I can use that book for every situation and for every child that comes to me, because it's that versatile, with having more emphasis on the pictures themselves. So there's a section and there's a page in the book that shows that. So the main idea of the story is that Joseph is watching TV and doesn't want to have to turn off the TV when his mom asks him to, because it's bedtime, and he has a big upset. And so his mom helps calm him enough for him to be able to say, okay, I think that I can go into my imagination and sort this out. So like we said earlier, like get some stuffed animals. And so his mom set him up for him to be able to go into his imagination and work it out. And so in the story, there are these characters called hypnozoids. And the hypnozoids are little characters that are what we do battle against, all of us, like sort of like what we are being asked to do, it's time to go to bed, and what we want to do, have that extra piece of chocolate cake. And so we all have to do that in our lives. We have to have a higher reason for what we're doing. So is the higher reason for Joseph to have a connection with his mom, and to be and have that feeling of I did something hard, or is a higher reason to get the TV time? What drives him? And in his case, he does know, like when I ask kids, when you don't want to do your homework and you have an upset at home and ultimately end up doing the homework, why do you end up doing the homework? And they all say, I just know I have to. And so it's just do it. It's the willpower of doing it. So all kids know the expectation, and it's difficult to find the willpower to just do it, though. And that's what he's battling. I know I'm supposed to go to bed. I know it's what I have to do every night. I know why I need to go to bed, and I still don't like it. That feeling of that, all the kids tell me, I don't like the feeling of being upset. I don't like hitting my parents. I don't like kicking and screaming. I don't like how that feels. And I wish I knew how to do it differently. And so in the story, one of the pictures shows Joseph in that state of, I don't like how this feels. How do I get out of this situation? And that's where parents can help too. Like, can you see that your child is really struggling and needs some guidance from you? And so in the story, the mom is not in the story, but she's represented by the dog in his imagination. And the dog is the one who helps Joseph get out of those uncomfortable feelings by helping him think about the tools he has. Like, can you just calm enough to start thinking about what to do to solve this problem, because he was so upset.
Yeah.
She helps him calm and suggests taking some deep breaths. I actually do a little activity with the kids where they come up with their own ideas of what they can do to help calm, and what tools they could use, and what vision they would like to see at the end. So if they know that they have to take the garbage out, can they picture their future self actually doing that? And I have them draw a little picture of them doing that. And we talk about the feelings that go along with that. And then what are they going to do in order to be able to do that hard thing? And they will come up with ideas like, just do it. Or sometimes they say, well, I don't want the hypnozoids to win the battle, so I'm going to win the point and just do it. Or some kids draw little pictures of tools that they think that they can use. And some, I have a little toolbox that I share with the kids. Like, here's some ideas to get started. And I have like a pencil that's just a regular pencil. And then I have a rubbery pencil. And we talk about the difference between being flexible, like the rubbery pencil, and rigid, like the other pencil, and what the feelings are that go along with that, and help them see, like, it does feel better to be flexible, but it's really hard to get there. Being rigid and get in your own way is like, that's what you want on one's in some ways. Of course, we all want just what we want, but that's not always what can happen. So how do you move from that to being flexible? So I just give them tools like that, like actual hands-on tools, and then let them pick out something that they think will help them be able to do something hard. And usually something hard with me is doing something with handwriting, but it also could be a gross motor activity that's hard for them. Or we talk about things like, what will you use at home to help you with this? The parent comes and tells me the child is having difficulty with something at home. So what tools could we use at home? So then I have the parents helping make that plan with the child. So in the end, it is a plan that the child comes up with to help solve that problem, and that they feel good about, actually. And then in the story, the mom narrates this whole scenario that just happened. It was time to go to bed. You didn't like it. And I helped you be able to calm enough for you to think, what could I do to solve this problem? Because I'm beginning to see I really need to do what you've asked me to do, but I really don't want to. All of those steps actually occur also in the story. It's in the imagination part of the story. And in the end, the mom helps him understand, like, your brain grew from doing that hard thing. It's a way that you can feel proud of yourself for doing that, because it's not easy. And there's a poster on Joseph's wall that says, tomorrow I'll be a day older. Tomorrow I'll be more practiced. And tomorrow doing hard things would be just a little easier. And that's the reality. Like, you grow from every day that you're alive on this planet and learn new things, and you practice the hard things, and it gets easier. You get sort of used to it more. And in the end, at the end of the story, the boy's feeling very content and proud of himself for something that could have turned out very negatively without the support of his mom, or in the story, the support of that the dog gives to him to help him extricate himself from that uncomfortable feeling. I don't like how this is, and it's very graphic in the book what that looks like, so that, and kids relate to it. Like, yeah, I don't like how that feels. You're right. And so that's back to the original comment that you made. There's a lot of that, page by page. There's a lot to look at and talk about with every child. And I just pick out the things that are the most relevant for each child, for each situation, and work with that. But with the videos that I was mentioning earlier, that's where any other listeners who might be interested can go and find more of this kind of content to help understand how they can use the book themselves with their child, which was my goal, because I can't teach everybody, but I can do it through the videos, and hope that parents will access that and understand, like, this is teaching me, which is what all my books are meant to do, teaching the adults, here's what you can do, here's what it is like for the child, and here's where you can offer some support for your child. You can reach out to your child. Your child doesn't know how to do this. And so it's a big responsibility for the adult to be calm enough and to be able to handle those uncomfortable feelings themselves. in being able to help their own child, because that's not easy either on the part of the parent. So that's a really important part of the book. And that's where the videos are explaining a lot of those visuals that are in the book, that if you just read the words, you miss a lot of the whole story and a lot of the value of the story.
Well, then you're talking about words. So let's get into some words here with you. So if I give you the letters TEA, what 3 words would you give me today for your T?
Oh, well, I think that the main thing that I'm always working on and have in my mind when I'm working with kids, like you're thinking about your 3 words around TEA, and the words that I think about a lot when I'm working with kids, one is empathy. So I really try to understand what it's like for that child. What could be the reason why they're having an upset? What could be all the things that went on during their day? What could be what's challenging for them at home? All of those things. I'm really trying to be there in their shoes and try to understand and try to interpret that for the parents, translate that for the parents. I think this is what's going on. And then I try out different responses. Like, is this a successful way to respond? And one of the ideas that I heard about from someone else once was the kids have a heavy backpack. They've got all of these things that have happened to them in the day, and they don't know how to process them. So one by one, I'm trying to help parents learn how to unpack that backpack and get those big feelings out, talk about those things. The book is a great way as a conversation starter. Let's talk about the things that happened in your day. And kids relate to the character, they relate to a book. Now they don't have to talk so much directly about themselves, but it can be a conversation started like, are you like Joseph? Did that happen to you today at school? Oh, maybe we can get that big feeling out of your backpack so that you have a lighter backpack tomorrow when you go to school, or maybe even get them all out, depending on how many there were. And so you can start fresh again. So I think a lot of kids need that time with their parents to unpack the day. And their days are busy. And sometimes there's not time to unpack all of that. So they go back to school the next day with a heavy backpack that starts overflowing then. And that's when the children are like, I can't do this. This is too much for me. Another word that I have, which is, I guess, similar, maybe I covered 2 words in one, but the understanding. Like there's a reason for what we're seeing. It's the surface of what we're seeing. Some people have used the analogy of the iceberg. Like what we see are the behaviors on top, but what's underneath, and understanding that and trying to build the vocabulary for the child to have the words to describe what they're feeling. Because I think that's really frustrating to not know how to describe what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And the last word would be regulation, maybe / mental health, because when kids don't have the tools to know how to regulate, those kinds of things, research shows, does affect their mental health as an adult. There is a correlation. So it's really important for kids to be heard, to be seen, to be soothed, to be understood, to be known. All those things that we sometimes hear about are really, really important. And we've talked some about the Mission Control of Big Feelings book, but you also mentioned that I've got other books coming out. And one of the books series that I have coming out is it's No Keto No. And it's about turning those no's into yeses by helping the child understand. And by that, that's the series that I've tried really, really hard to help parents know, here's the response. Here are the words, here's the vocabulary, here's what the child is looking for, here's the need to meet. And to change it from all I hear all day long is no, no, no. Don't do this. Stop doing that. They hear way too much, and at school and on the playground and just their days are hearing a lot of no's. How do you turn it into yeses? they have to be taught. And so it's a little giraffe in the story who learns from his friends who take the time to be present with him, take the time to hear the big feelings, take the time to say, I understand and I can relate, in fact, to what you're feeling. And then once the child feels heard and seen, then the giraffe in the story feels like, okay, well, now I know what to do. I have a plan. You just helped me figure out by talking about that. I just figured out what I could do. And now I'm going to get agreement from my friends who the conflict was with. And like, is that cool? And so then the giraffe has an opportunity to work through that conflict successfully using the plan. And they all are celebrating like, yay, yes, Keto, yes, you did it. So that's what a lot of those stories, and they're all social emotional kinds of issues that come up in that series. And so that's a lot of the regulation is, some of that is in that story because parents have a big opportunity to help regulate their children. And so I'm trying to give them the tools through that series. The other series that I have that's coming out is Seymour pauses. And that's the whole idea. Like if a child can just take a second to stop and think, then what you choose to do could be different and you're going to get different results. So in the story, the bird is helped by his sister, his older sister, to help him see what will happen if he does X and what will happen if he does Y, and helps him understand and helps the reader understand, like, for example, nobody will let me play. That example that I gave before, there's one of the stories is a little bit like that. And or actually one of the best examples I have that I like is a little boy waiting, the bird waiting in line, the main character waiting in line, and there's a bird in front of him that has beautiful feathers, and he just is like desperate to touch the feathers, and he knows that if he does, it might be like the bird might not like it, but he's not really thinking about that. Kids always know that after the fact, probably they didn't like that, and I could have asked if I had thought about it. And then the bird has a reaction, and he's not paying attention to the reaction. The bird's just saying, like, stop, and he's not paying attention to that. And the bird responds again after he touches the feathers and says something a little stronger, and which upsets the main character. So he kicks, which is a very common thing that happens with many of the kids I'm working with. And the sister helps him, like, sort of rewind the video and see, oh, actually, she did say, please stop, I don't like that. And she did say something else, and you didn't hear that either. So he gets to see that actually he's missing a lot of cues. And because he's intent on something different. So the bigger picture, he's not seeing. He's seeing a little piece of the picture, what he's interested in and what he'd like to do. And it's really hard for him to understand there's more to it. And so his big sister helps him understand that, like, you're missing information. Let me help you see that. Now, what reaction would you have? What would you do differently this time? And then that just has to be practiced a whole bunch of times, because every situation is a little bit different, a different kid, all of those things. But the story, if you can just keep reading it over and over again, then it starts to feel like, I know about that now. It's starting to feel like I could do that. I can be like the character. And that's the main idea of all the stories. Can you relate to the character? Can you feel like you could be successful as well?
So now we have a couple questions here about animals and children's mental health. Do you feel that using animals helps children's mental health in storytelling?
I think that taking it, instead of talking directly like you, whatever, it's the animal did this. So it's like working with stuffed animals or something in real life. The animal did this. Sometimes I do act out the stories with kids, and they like doing that. And it doesn't feel like they're under the microscope themselves. And so it feels less threatening to them, I feel. And so, yes, I I do think that, first of all, that is a topic that almost every kid will agree to discuss. Like if you say, what could you talk about with your friend? Animals is always a winner. So I think that it's always a good idea to use animals in stories as a way to relate. And then you can get little stuffed animal versions of the characters in the stories, get those made, and then it makes it feel even more real because now I can hold the animal in the story. And so, yeah, I think the animals in real life too have a lot of power. We all know how supportive they can be. And so I do think of them often as what we think of in real life as supports for us.
So we also have another question here for you, Nan. With children with mental health, is there any services out there that they can reach out to that they might not be aware of that you might know of?
Well, I think it's different in all parts of the world, what's available. I think that there's a lot more here in the United States available in the schools since the pandemic. There's been definitely an increase in the kind of support. And I think that there's just much more awareness on the part of all adults that the pandemic has really made it difficult for kids of all ages, not to mention us adults, but and knowing even how to help them. And so I think that there are also a lot of online supports and a lot of books out now on mental health too for kids. And so I don't mean online therapy. I meant like online,
Yeah.
there are websites that offer a lot of support for parents and knowing how to help their kids. And then the traditional therapists that are outside of the schools that could provide some support too. And there are some organizations, I know of a few, I think they're nonprofit organizations that do offer services for kids. And, but I wouldn't know something worldwide or national
Yeah.
can do that. But I do know that a lot of the nonprofit organizations are really trying to reach out, not just in the local areas, but globally too, because the need is global.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, us adults struggled with the pandemic. So imagine the children.
Yeah.
I know my grandchildren really struggled with the in and out of school, right? Going to
Mm-hmm.
school and then online schooling them back into class. So it was really confusing for the
Yeah.
children, and a lot of mental illness. It was formed from all of the stress, right? The high levels of stress and anxiety and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So,
Mhm.
so what three tips would you have for the listeners this afternoon for children that are struggling with mental illness?
I think awareness, paying attention to what are the messages you're hearing from your child, what are the behaviors you're seeing. Understand that those behaviors are saying something. They have a meaning, and understanding what that is. And then also, I think another important part is the role of the parent, like we kind of talked about already. If the parent is regulated themselves, they're going to be able to help regulate their child. And if the parent is not regulated, then it's really hard for a child to follow along
Yeah.
because they need the guidance. And so that seems to be a real challenge. Again, for all the reasons that you just said, thanks to the pandemic, everyone's much more stressed now than
Yeah.
before, not like they weren't stressed already. So it's really, really important for adults to have their own coping strategies for how they get through their own day so that they have something for their child still available to be able to see my child needs this right now. And I am feeling that I have actually the time and the patience and the awareness that my child needs me to help guide in the ways that I've tried to model in the books. And because my child is a child, that child
Yeah.
hasn't learned what to do. And so it really is important for me to do that. And then I think the third thing is, yeah, reaching out. find the support for your child and for you as an adult, because it, parents call me and they're asking for tools for themselves to help their child. They're not just saying my child needs this. They recognize that they need the support too. So I think that awareness is the first step of all of that, is recognizing and taking the time and noticing. So sort of like the Seymour series of books that I mentioned, like rather that it's not about the small things that just happen. It's a bigger picture. Can you see the bigger picture of what's going on with your child and help them so that they can broaden their view of what's going on? Like, that's what parents can do, is not fixate on the small insignificant things, but to see the bigger concerns that that the child needs support for.
So Nan, we're almost at the end here. So any final message that you have for the viewers and listeners today about the books and about where they can find you and all of that good stuff?
Oh, thanks for asking. So the book Mission Control: A Big Feelings Adventure is on Amazon, and I have a website which you've got up on the screen, a hop, skip, and a jump ahead.com. If you go to /books, or just go to the tab on books, I have just gotten the books up that are going to be coming out, and I'm hoping to get them all out in 2024. And so you'll see what the books are, and you'll see a little summary of each of the books. So if those are of interest, because you've learned a little bit about what I'm trying to do through my books, and those are topics that feel like they would be helpful to families, then that's a place to go and explore a little bit. And also that's where the videos are also that I mentioned. Right now there's only 4, but there should be 3 more loaded on any day now. One of them for sure. There's going to be one more video being done on Monday, and then that should be loaded up. And then there's 2 that have been done but just haven't been loaded yet. So, but parents, if they're interested in learning more about the book that we've been talking about mostly today, there are 4 of them already, so they could get started on that if they're interested. So it's all about empowering parents so they can empower their kids. And that's why I'm putting out as much information as I can. All the books that are coming out next year will have extra activities to reinforce the messages that are in the books, try to encourage kids, and also information for parents to help them know, give them tools and a resource also. And so that's all on that website.
And you also have worksheets and that we talked about, some activity free service under the services. You have some free activity sheets that people can check out as well on the website.
It's all under the books tab.
Under the books tab.
Yeah. And if they go to Mission Control, is the one that has a ton right now. And the other books, I'm working on them, and some are loaded but not available yet to see because I don't have the books out to go along with it. So it doesn't make much sense without the books. But otherwise, it's really worth going on to see all the resources that are on right now related to the Mission Control book.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining me today on Tea Time. It was a pleasure having you here. Christmas time is coming, so it's a good time to go out and get some Christmas books for your grandchildren, your children, and it makes a good conversation time. And also gets you to engage with your children and understand them a little bit more. Nan, I really want to thank you for bringing awareness to children's mental health, because I think it's deeply important. We don't speak about it enough, and we need to take that great big pause. We talked about that this morning with Janet, about how the human development really needs a pause. We're always on the go, 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 go. So we need to just pause and take a break and take everything in and then start again, kind of recharge ourselves. So it's like a cup of tea. Your tea gets empty, you fill your cup of tea up again and you recharge again. So just keep filling that cup up. And then again, thank you so much for joining me on Tea Time. It was a pleasure having you here. And we'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. for the final Tea Time of this week. Next week, we will only have 2 Tea Times because my first Tea Time guest has a life issue that came up, and that guest will be on in season 5. So I'm going to be pushing her on until the next season. So all is well. She's in good health and everything, but we're just going to push it to the next season. So, and I will see everybody back here tonight at 7 p.m. with Stephanie Levine, and we'll be talking about romance and mystery and her new books out there. So, again, thank you, Nan, for
Thank you
having
for
tea with
having
me.
the opportunity to talk with you. I appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure.